Hey, hello. Welcome to episode number 92 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choit. What's up? If you are new here, what I do is interview people from all walks of life, most often comedian and other artists about their lives and careers. It's casual conversation, but I also ask everyone to highlight someone they love, someone who they admire, who influenced them, inspired them, or supported them. For more, check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. That's peoplewelovepodcast.com. And the Instagram handle is at peoplewelovepodcast. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter as well if you want to follow me at Adam Choit on both of those platforms. And please remember to tap subscribe or follow on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. And of course, 5-star positive reviews on iTunes are greatly appreciated as well. So, today's guest is comedian and founder of the Comedy Bureau, Jake Kroeger. The Comedy Bureau is the central source of information of all things comedy throughout Los Angeles. As the son of a military dad, Jake moved around quite a bit as a kid, including spending time in Los Angeles, Virginia, and Colorado. A rather serious, smart, and mature child who grew up loving Alfred Hitchcock, and he still does. It wasn't until years later that Jake discovered his true love for comedy and the comedy community itself. Before we get started, just wanted to let you all know that early on, Jake is talking to me about being adopted from the Philippines when he was 1, which was a conversation we started before I hit record. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up about that so you can have that context when the topic comes up in the episode. But anyway, here's Jake Kroeger. So it's good to see you today, Jake Kroeger. Thank you for joining me on the Zoom. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And thanks for having me.
Oh, how are you holding up during this super fun 2020?
I hate it. I hate every second of it. I am not having a good time or whatever. I'm mostly because I was a person who was out 7 nights a week without exception. Comedy is my life, like going to live comedy, and like I hate staying home. And my forms of sort of like self-care, or being with people, and comedy, and community, and dancing, and all these stuff that is not allowed because of the COVID-19. So that's not to say that I try my best to get through my days and do a bunch of stuff, which I do. I'm like never bored. That's not an issue, but it's just not enough,
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you on all that for sure. And that's one of the more honest answers I've heard from people, I guess, because most early 20, I mean, you were, but you gave it a positive spin sort of at the end. Like
Right.
You're trying to make good use of the time, even though it's been not fucking the best year.
Right. I'm not going to try to front like, oh yeah, it's okay. I've been faring okay. No, this is like, I'm sure I have plenty of years left on my life, but already I think this is like top 5 worst years of my life already.
Dude, maybe I'm in denial about how messed up everything is. Cause like, I'm working from home and I'm eating and exercise, a podcast, whatever. I keep myself busy. I talk to some people, see a few people, whatever, but
Right.
Maybe I'm in denial about how insane everything is and how terrible everything, like to some degree. But you have to bullshit yourself in order to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, take it day by day, and you have to. I mean,
focus on what you can control.
Yeah, focus on what you control and understand. I mean, it's such an unprecedented time that's so concussive and horrific in so many different ways. You have to just accept. I think it's personally helpful that if you accept that these are bad times, like that's not saying
acceptance.
That, like,
it's like part of the 12-step thing. Acceptance. Isn't that one of the ones on the list?
I have not been to AA, but I think it is.
It's important. No, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think it's easier to process what's going on when you sort of accept that, as opposed to like, kind of denying it and pushing down your feelings. I mean, like in those first weeks, of lockdown in late March and April, all the headlines were just like thousands of people are dying every day. And like, but that's not normal, you know?
Yeah, we live in strange, sad times for sure. But why don't we get into earlier times, like your life
Sure.
and your childhood and where you grew up? You were telling me it's a little bit complicated before we started recording. But what are your like earliest memories? And you could kind of get into a little bit of the chronology of the early years.
Right. So yeah, you're asking me where I was from, and I answered that it was a complicated question, and I started to go into it, and then you're like, save it for the pod. So earliest memory, so I am a person who's adopted, and I was adopted when I was 1, and I was adopted because I was in an orphanage. And how did I get to an orphanage? Well, as it turns out, my birth mother in the Philippines, she left me in a church when I was 9 days old because she was on the run from terrorists.
Wow.
Yeah, right. So she went to a city she wasn't from and went to a church she never went to and sat through mass and then asked for me to be baptized and then just went to the gift shop and asked for somebody to watch me and then left a note saying she was a person of interest of this terrorist group. And then that was the last anyone saw of her. She didn't leave any identifying information. And so I betting that she was betting that I would end up in an orphanage and that I would get adopted by some nice family and then end up pretty much like I am now.
In the United States?
In the United States, wearing a pink button up.
Wow, that's quite a story already. It sounds like that's like some like Bible stuff, like dude getting left in a basket or something, and then goes on to live this crazy, interesting life. Wow. So what happened after that? I'm assuming these are just stories and explanations and what's been told to you over the years. But like,
Right.
what happened when you were like 10 days old?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, people. I feel like I have this vague memory of being left in that church. That there was like a gold cross and like a red curtain, and it was cold. When I was 9 days old. I mean,
It's possible. It's possible. See, you 5 years ago, I would have been like, nah, that guy fucking doesn't believe that. That's just like something he made up in his head or how he pictured it over the years. But
right.
like, it's possible. I seen that documentary about the twins that were like those triplets that were separated, and then they like it ruined them because of their connection within the womb. Like you had some kind of memory or connection to that
Right.
moment. I think
It's
it's possible.
it's a great. I mean, yeah. As soon as you are born, I mean, there's bonding that happens between you and the mother, and then to sever that at 9 days old, I mean, is a traumatic experience.
Right.
Even if you're not conscious of it, like in the way that you're conscious as an adult. So I want to believe that was like imprinted on there, and then I mean. It was a Catholic church and it was, attached to an orphanage. So I got put into that orphanage and, as a matter of protocol, they like put my name in the newspaper or the name that she left, which very well could be just fake and made up. My birth name at the time before I was adopted was Fausto Angelo de Jesus. Vastly different from Jake Kroeger.
I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah, much more fitting of my style. But my name's Jake Kroeger. That's just what I'm used to. Yeah, they put my name in the paper. They put it on the radio airwaves for like 2 weeks, and then no one claimed me, so I ended up in the orphanage. And I stayed there for like a year, and then an adoption agency had my picture, and my folks looked through this binder, not unlike the experience you would have with like Tinder, where you're just kind of like going page by page.
Is that in your act? Is that
I mean, kind of, yeah.
That sounds like something that would be
yeah. And they found me adorable or charming, and they picked me. And then yeah, a social worker picked me up and flew me from the tropics of the Philippines to Colorado in the dead of winter.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does this, we don't have to go too deep into this, but how did people
Mhm.
from Colorado find, you were 1 years old, 1 year old in the
Yeah.
Philippines?
Right. Well, so my dad is white and my mom is Filipino, and I think that they were aiming to adopt a kid that was Filipino. So when they go to an adoption agency and they get cleared by a social worker, and there are all these like hoops you got to clear to like be approved to adopt a child. I mean, like
I'm sure, yeah.
yeah, that you can financially provide for them, emotionally provide for them.
The real
And
parents don't have these tests, though.
yeah, no, the
You can be
biological
as
parents, no.
fucked up as you want to be. You can have if it's your own kid, you can do it, and you can be a parent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's sort of the flip side of like being a dad. You were wanted. I mean they
Right.
really,
Of course, yeah, true.
So yeah, once they had all of that cleared, and they worked with an adoption agency, it's kind of a back and forth of like what you're looking for and what's available, and kind of being ready at a moment's notice.
To fly to the Philippines, or were they already
Well,
there?
I mean that's a little different. I mean, I have friends.
Yeah, like they were the arrangements made in advance? I guess that's my question. Or were they overseas already, like looking?
No. So a social worker actually just went and got me and then flew me back.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, I guess they're not gonna meet you. They don't meet you see you in person first.
I mean,
yeah,
but it's like you got to pay your way. Like that. I mean, it's not a cheap thing to do.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
It is cheaper than in vitro, I'd argue, but
right.
It's not cheap still. No, like
as long as you're healthy, I'm sure they were like looking. That's probably the information that they wanted the most anyway. Like,
right. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go on.
My sister is also adopted, but me and my mom went to the Philippines. She's also from the Philippines, and we personally picked her up and then flew her back. So I guess there's an option,
Mm-hmm. So you were in Colorado then? Is that where you?
Yeah, I landed in Colorado. Yeah.
And what do you remember were you there? How long were you in Colorado for? Because you were telling me you also kind of moved
just
around a little
years.
bit.
Yeah, because the thing is, my dad was in the Army, and because of that, we moved every 2 or 3 years. So I've lived in Colorado and Texas and Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, Washington, and here in California. And so I really don't remember a lot from that time. It was cold when it was cold. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of those years that are, I mean, kind of fleeting because, so I mean, I didn't really get to put roots down really anywhere for a long time.
Yeah. What about so elementary school age? Where were you? Were you kind of at that time in your life for the most part?
I lived, all right. So in elementary was split between two places, here in LA and Virginia. So
wow.
I went to first through third here. And then my dad got assigned to a place in Virginia, and yeah, we moved there. And I really thought everybody. So I was going to like Christian private school at the time, and it was of my opinion after I finished third grade that everybody in Virginia in Christian private school in fourth grade was very slow. So I personally demanded that I get to skip to fifth grade, and they allowed me to do that.
Wow. So yeah, I was going to ask kind of what kind of kid were you? Were you smart in elementary school? What were you into? How were you like socially? Were you into sports? Like what were you like? And then what were you like at the new school? I'll kind of let you tell that story.
Yeah, so I was focused. I mean, throughout my school years, academics was big. It was a really big thing with me. I loved playing basketball, but I never got like really any good at it until like college. You know, but I loved playing it. It was very important to my parents that I was enrolled in martial arts at all times. So
Yeah.
I had taken some form of martial arts throughout like all of my school years. Yeah, no matter where we lived. And so I think like when I was living in California, I was doing like some karate or like a strip mall version of karate. Uh, and then in Virginia, what did we do in Virginia?
Did you advance in karate? Did you get better?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Where were we at? How far did you advance?
I think with the karate, I got to probably right before a black belt, but I did ended up like later in my life getting a black belt in Taekwondo, and I've also boxed.
Wow.
Done Brazilian jiu-jitsu, learned how to knife fight. Like,
dude, can you train me? Are you doing that on Zoom now? Now that comedy's been canceled?
I'm not doing that on Zoom. I haven't done martial arts in years. Although, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to doing it again. It's just a matter of it's a time commitment, man. I like, what's funny is my dad was so it was so reticent for him to have me do martial arts that often when I was a kid, when we were talking, he would like try to hit me in a way that like I would have to defend myself. And so it's just like it's instinctual. So
dude, that's awesome. And you actually, I think, just answered my next question, because I was asking you, I was going to ask basically, do you feel rusty if you had to use and rely on martial arts right now? Because you're like, oh, I haven't done it in a while. Would you be more vulnerable, or would those instincts of your dad trying to hit you come right back?
Yeah, they'd probably come rushing back. I mean, there was a long time where people would go in for a hug and I would block them, or like ended up sort of hitting them because of that.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've learned so much.
It's funny though.
Oh man, this sounds so much like bragging, but I've learned so much in martial arts, and I definitely, you never really know if you're like one of the like what your fight or flight response is until you are really put in a situation where you find that out. I mean, you can theorize all you want, but I have found that I'm like definitely a fighter for better or for worse. And in those moments, I have found that like it's scary. For all that I've learned, like I'm scared of what I might do, like in those moments of where you're kind of like going at your base instincts, and you're kind of filled with like rage and adrenaline.
Right. You want to defend yourself, but what is the proper amount of force to be used in this situation is a tough decision to make in a split moment or split second or whatever the case may be. Wow. Yeah, that's cool though, that you know how to do this.
Yeah. I'm always worried that if I ever got in an actual fight, I just punch somebody in the throat.
And that would kill them?
I mean, it would like definitely incapacitate them. And, if you were to do it repeatedly, that would cause like a lot of harm and a lot of damage.
Dude, that's what I got to do if I get in a fight. Go for the throat. Don't punch him in the face. Like, it's not a video game. All right, I'm going to write that down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm just like, I'm really glad that I haven't had to use this,
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like, it sounds like not stereotypical, but like, I could see the military sort of influence, making sure, I'm guessing your parents made sure that you were on top of your academics, and the martial arts is like, it's sort of like training or whatever in a sense, and physical activity and also self-defense. I could see that those things, like a connection between between those things. But what about like media or comedy or watching TV shows or music? What were you kind of into as a
Right.
kid? Even in middle school, you can kind of get into middle school and like beyond
So,
what
well,
your life was like.
what's interesting is I was never really hardcore into comedy until like probably 11 or 12 years ago. Newsflash, the Comedy Bureau is 10 years old. And I
Gotcha.
started doing comedy like 11 years ago. And yeah, I was a very serious child, and I very much wanted to be like a filmmaker, not unlike Alfred Hitchcock. And that was like my focus as a kid. And as far as like, I movies and TVs, I would try to like watch stuff that was like very critically acclaimed and adult, and whether or not I understood it or like it was for me, I just wanted to like imbue myself with that. And then as far as music goes, when I was like really young as a kid, like in elementary and middle school, I just would buy or listen to the soundtrack of any movie that I watched in theaters. That was like my window into music. And then when I got into junior high, I like started getting into classic rock. And then like I kind of veered off into a bunch of different things from that into like blues. And then I, started to get into like, I took jazz history in college and got into jazz.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean,
I love all this stuff, by the way.
Right.
Blues and classic rock. That's like up my alley.
Oh, perfect. But yeah, I really got into really niche, like Delta blues, like
Sure.
Sun House and Lead Belly and, a lot of deep cut niche things.
Sure.
Hound Dog Taylor is still one of my favorites. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know he has 6 fingers on his left hand?
Maybe. I know there was a pitcher in baseball who did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the interesting thing about he got to play this very like fast, very like almost punky sort of blues rock. It's really, really great that I wish more people knew about. But yeah, I really, really got into that. And I mean, in that time, a lot of what I was into was a product of like being into something that no one else was into. So like when I was in high school, for instance, everyone loved Green Day or Blink-182.
Sure.
Like just a bunch of pop punk and bad alt rock or emo, and I hated all of that, and I still do. I think it's trash, and the fact that people who in their 40s really rock out to Blink-182 still is sad to me. But like what you like. I'm not going to say that they're wrong. It's just don't ask me to even consider thinking that it's good, baby.
Yeah, no, that you're speaking my language, and that's pretty much exactly how I feel. I mean, I got into other music like after probably the classic rock and got deeper into blues, and I started getting more into hip hop and some other things. And I like world music and a lot of stuff. But it sounds like you were the type of kid and even like teenager who always kind of like went against the grain and always wanted to be seen and viewed and thought of themselves as older, maybe even more mature from liking the critically acclaimed films. Where does that come from? Was your sister like that? Or is it that your parents treated you like an adult? Or what was it?
My sister has terrible taste. I don't know if she would even be that upset that I would say that.
But did she want to be an adult? Did she want to be seen and always viewed as older? I guess all kids do, but you like...
Yeah, me more so.
Especially, yeah.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of my early formative years, my sister is 6 years younger than me, and she wasn't in my life until I was like 10 or 11. So yeah, I had all those years where it was just me as an only child. So, I mean, I've also had that experience of like being an only child and not being an only child. And so, it wasn't really inspired by my parents. It wasn't really I just kind of was a thing. Like, these are all things that I'm sort of innately into. Like a lot of, I mean, as an overarching theme of my life, what I find that really drives me is like a sense of like discovery and like exploring and like trying to find stuff, especially when it comes to taste. So I like trying a bunch of different things. And I mean, there's so much different music and movies and TV and whatnot. It's like all over the place. And I'm always, willing to try and listen to new stuff. I mean, like, I think like a year ago, I had a brief, like thrash metal phase. Like, it was like into thrash metal for a month and just listened to classic sort of like Metallica and Slayer and stuff like that. It was a particularly angry month of my life, or a month or two.
You go where life takes you.
Yeah. But I'm kind of open to all of it. Although I really hate pop country and calypso quite a bit.
Tell me about like Alfred Hitchcock. Was that like your first director that you remember, and like kind of genre of movies that was really appealing to you, and like kind of talk about that and like why his movies and those types of movies?
Right. I was really into Hitchcock because it was something that was, it hit an intersection of being, critically acclaimed and being intellectually stimulating and bankable. Like there were things that were very popular and enjoyable. And to make something that was like smart but accessible or like rewarding in terms of watching it or consuming it was very appealing to me. And having such a great track record of that in his filmography was something I wanted to emulate.
I could totally picture like I forget, you said you're probably like an adolescent, like getting into these movies or something like that. And I could envision or imagine you articulating what you just told me as the kid that age in your head, because like you were an adult kid, basically. It seems like, to some degree.
Oh yeah, I mean that's not uncommon for. I mean, I was a latchkey kid too. Both my parents worked, and I had to walk home a lot, and just there was a lot of time to myself.
But just the way you talk about the movies and describe him and his movies is very. It's a very like thoughtful. Your words are thoughtful, as opposed to like, oh, the movies were cool, I like them, I thought they were fun, like, or something like that. Or something you were thinking about.
Were good. I like that they were like good.
Yeah, but you're looking at it's just interesting how you're looking at the movies from so many different angles. And it sounds like you always wanted to be a filmmaker. Were you making films like or little videos or things like that as you were growing up into middle school, high school?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get in. Well, I mean, like that's something I wanted to do, and I just felt cost prohibitive at the making like home movies, like when I was really young. But when I got into high school, I started like a film club when my high school didn't have one, and we tried making various like bad short films here and there, and we'd watch movies all the time. And that was kind of that. But I then like got into film school, USC film school. And that's where, I really got into dig in and sort of be in the world of filmmaking, making films, crewing, and learning kind of I think that's one of the things I really love about the USC Film School is it kind of teaches you every aspect of filmmaking, so you can take it from just kind of an idea up here all the way to putting it on a screen somewhere. And I mean, every little facet of it, including production design and sound design and producing itself, and things that you might overlook when you think about like being just dreaming about being a writer or director when you're a kid.
That's cool. That's cool that you had that experience. I was going to ask, what did like the other kids in like high school and whatnot think of you? Because you were definitely kind of a go against the grain type of a person, but it seems like you were able to connect with some like-minded people. I'm guessing with making the videos and whatnot. And where did you say you ended up going to high school before we get into more like USC stuff?
Right. So yeah, I moved all over the place as a kid, but then I ended up back here in LA in high school for high school.
Okay.
Like from my sophomore year on. And yeah, I went to Warren High School, which is in Downey, and it's still there. What's interesting is if you're Army brat, military brat, whatever you want to call it, you sort of like cope with moving all the time in one of two ways. You either become like this immensely gregarious social butterfly, or you're just a dedicated loner. And even though I later in life became the former, I was all throughout school the latter. I sought out to have lunch with people that were okay not talking to me. It was a function of my time here is with these people is very little, I think, probably. So why should I bother investing my emotions, my feelings in a relationship with them when it's just going to go away at some point pretty soon, and in the short term, that's very helpful, but later on in life, that is not helpful. And I've had to sort of undo a lot of that and like appreciate I've been in LA for quite some time now, and just having like being in a place that I don't have to leave and having people that, stay in my life for longer than 2 years.
Yeah, for sure. No, I don't think that's entirely a bad thing what you were describing, because I feel like I have a lot of conversations with people when they grow up, and myself included, that think whatever's going on in their town, in their school, in their little world is
Right.
the whole world, because you're so invested in it and it's all you know. But you were able to see beyond that, but maybe you missed out on some potential relationships and special relationships with other people that you could have stayed in touch with, I guess. I know social media and internet changes things, I guess. So it's not
as a kid, it's hard to stay in touch because, like, if you're not going to the same school,
right, and that kept happening to you.
Yeah, and you don't have anything to talk about, man, because you're not taking the same math test or whatever, or you're not going to the same recess. All those little bits of drama are just so immediate to their experience, and I'm not privy to that anymore. So it's kind of
you don't have all the context and backstory for what the hell's going on in whatever new place you're in.
Kids are terrible conversationalists, so you don't. There's not a lot going on there, and that's why I don't have. That's something I feel remiss about, but it's just something I don't get. Is that so many people who didn't have to move like I did have friends that like, I went to kindergarten with this person, I went to first grade with this person, and they've just been in my life. I don't have any of that at all. But
I'm sure you have other people in your life and other connections you've made. Like that's all that matters. I think ultimately is not giving people titles so much and whatever, but just having love and giving and receiving love with other humans on this planet, regardless of what the relationship is.
Right. So in regards to your other question about how people saw me, I was so obsessed with grades and like getting into college, specifically USC Film School, and getting into something really prestigious. That is, I think, how people saw me. Is just I was focused on like being like a top level student. I graduated salutatorian of my high school. I had like some ridiculous GPA that was like 4.67 or something. Because I took all AP classes. Yeah. And I ended up taking so many AP tests that I did well enough on. I graduated college a year early too.
Yeah, we have some things in common, but not everything. Now that
what are the things in common?
We like comedy. I don't. We're gonna. Now there's other things that have, when I go back and listen to that, we'll recall. But tell me more about like USC and like when you went in there, what was sort of your expectations and sort of what where did you go as a filmmaker sort of coming out of there, like not in so much of like, oh, I thought this school would be good at this and they weren't good at this, but like you as an artist, you as a creative person, like the Alfred Hitchcock lover, do you like that? Where do you creatively, what's your journey kind of?
I think everybody who goes to like the top level film schools, they have these grandiose visions of what they want to do and what they want to be. And obviously having like a film that they made, their vision being seen and appreciated by the world. And, that isn't 100% true or what happens, I mean, it's the idea that anything gets made TV film wise, like, is insane. And then that's regardless of whether it's good or not. It's just like, it's such a long, arduous process to even have that happen. It involves so many people. It's crazy. So what I found was, I was going to go into film school and have this idea of like writing all these scripts and like, graduating, getting like having made sort of maybe like an award-winning like thesis film, and I would get like a 3-picture deal somewhere. That didn't happen. Also, there were people that in my film class that were just well connected by their family. They had like a dad or an uncle or something that was like a very powerful agent or studio executive, and that's why they were there. And they didn't give a shit that like anybody like that to like make film, or which is such a waste, because it's such a
that's terrible.
Yeah, and I really hated those people and resented them for that. It was like, those people would do things like we would be shooting our pickups, like our final days of shooting, that we just are kind of covering stuff that we think we didn't catch in our normal schedule. And the days would start with those people being drunk and not knowing where we were going to shoot. Like, we didn't have a location. So they would just like say, come to their house, and we'd have to dress up their house like it was something that we could use in all these shots. And it was bad. It was bad.
Yeah. Don't name names.
I don't. But I went through the program, and I think also what's great about it kind of teaches you the how hard being in film is, because even in the film school as an undergrad, not everybody is guaranteed to make their own film. You go through the program, and near the end of it, you apply to direct like what would essentially be a thesis film. And so from that pool of applicants, which is like 70, 80 people, they picked 10, and I made it in the 10. And then they pair you with people in the screenwriting program, and you have to kind of like find a script that, or a writer that, wants to work with you. And those 10 projects get to pitch, and then they greenlight 4.
Wow.
Yeah. So I made it to the 10, and I got to pitch, and I didn't get greenlit. What I was told was my pitch was good, but the project that I was pitching was too easy to make. It didn't exude the sort of like potential production problems that they want to have when teaching there's other students about filmmaking. And that was what I was told. And so at that juncture, I had finished all my course requirements, both for the university and my major. And so I graduated an entire year early because of that. And basically it would have been
That's what
great.
you do?
That's what I do. I mean, it would have been great if I got greenlit because I would have just had that would be the only thing I would have to focus on the next semester. I could like dedicate all my time to that. But instead that didn't happen. And that's one of those rare moments where you come to such a wide fork in a road in your life that you can feel the change of it. Like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to get to do any of this with the next year of my life. I'm going to have to do something entirely different.
And how did you feel like, I mean, you must have been upset, or were you mad? Like, cause was your script, did you feel like then, or even looking back, like yours was just as good, if not better, or significantly better than the other people there? And like you were being penalized because you were efficient in a sense?
Right.
Did you feel that way?
I was definitely disappointed. It wasn't my script. It was somebody else's script.
That's true. But you're part of it now.
Yeah, I'm part of it now. Yeah, it was upsetting. It was disappointing. And then, they kind of like made me really existential about like, well, where do I go from here? What do I do now? I don't know. I mean, yeah, I was in some internships and all that, and that's like something I could do. I was doing and would lead me onto a path. But yeah, I didn't really. I mean, yeah, I had this idea, this plan of what was going to happen, and all of that sort of, like the idea of making a thesis film gone. And so then, how am I going to, according to that original plan of like making an award-winning thesis film and like having a 3-picture deal somewhere, like, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, we can't control everything, huh?
No.
So what happened?
Very, very little we can control.
Yeah, I was gonna. So where did we go after your early graduation?
So I worked every shitty film and TV job I possibly can get, and I've done like all those jobs of whether it's like PA or working craft service, driver, best boy, grip, electrical, like. I've done all of it, man, in the production office, on set. And I just like, I did that for a while and I kind of hated it because the hours are so long and a lot of those shoots are really demanding for not a lot of return. And you're just hoping like, oh, you'll get in good with somebody and hopefully they're good or talented and that, they'll keep you on.
Right. That's how it works.
Which kind of did happen, but yeah, I worked a bunch of terrible, movies and projects. That I couldn't believe that I even got through the days because of like, how insane they were. One was an Egyptian Christian movie that I worked on. And I think one of our final days, you've worked on a set, right? Have you?
Right. Yeah. Of course.
So, you know what a company move is, right?
A company move?
Yeah.
Is that when everybody moves to a new location or no?
Right. And so generally, producers try to plan company moves like just down the street or like, around the corner.
If it's the same day, right.
Same day. So on this movie, we had 3 company moves in a day. Generally, they try to do one. We had 3, and they were as follows. We started in Newport Beach in the morning, and then we had to go to East LA at lunch, and then we had to go to Arcadia. No, we had to go to Hollywood in the afternoon, and then end up in Arcadia for our final location. And
how many places? Did you just name 4 places or 3?
Yeah. It was stupid. It was really dumb.
It was 4 places or 3?
4.
Wow, that's.
But 3
so it must have been a crazy long day with not enough shooting because you were traveling so much.
Absolutely. Like it was a lot of just like, oh, we're here. We're gonna point and shoot. There we go. And like, let's go.
Craziness.
And and it was a really, really dumb thing. Like, but I got through it. And I would get exhausted by stuff like that. And when, I idealized it like, oh, I can do these jobs for money and then I'll have time to write.
That's my next question. Or what are we working on or not working on?
No, I didn't work on anything because I was so exhausted, man. And I at that time, I remember thinking like, oh, I get why people watch bad multicam sitcoms. It's not even about enjoying it. It's so much as like, here's some sound and colors and shapes that are moving in a not upsetting way. And that's great for me to unwind after my
Essentially,
day. Yeah. And I really kind of just hated that. And then, this is sort of like my serendipitous like entryway into comedy, where my best friend at the time, and we are no longer friends, spoiler alert, he wanted to be a comedian. He very specifically wanted to be the next Adam Carolla. And I don't like watching people play video games, which is unfortunate because Twitch is such a huge thing. But I really hated watching him play video games. And that was kind of what we were doing a lot of our time hanging out.
I was gonna ask if you were roommates, but I guess either way, if you're hanging out a lot and like, yeah.
No, we were friends in high school, and then we just, we continue to hang out all the time. And I with all his talk of wanting to be a comedian, I was like, all right, well, why don't we go do it, man? He had a car but didn't have a license because he's a lazy piece of shit. I would drive him. I found an open mic that was in Long Beach, and we went to that. And it was on Wednesdays, and you got 7 minutes, and you could do anything. Poetry, music, comedy. And what was nice is they balanced it in between all the different disciplines. So if there were some comedians that went up, they would have some music and then some poetry before they let any more comedians.
That's cool.
Yeah. And he didn't hate it. I'm like, okay, so we'll just keep doing this. And I didn't want to just drive there and buy coffee and watch. I wanted to like do something. So I'd written poetry that I won awards for in high school. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I could just read this on stage. That'll do. I played guitar for a long time, so I would go play like Bob Dylan covers or just like solo on stage. And I did that for like a year. But in that year, what I found was I really loved hanging out with comedians, and I loved the sort of camaraderie of it. And I love the purity in their sort of desire of the art form. Like they kept going up and kept bombing for the most part.
I'm fascinated by all this too. Right.
And there's no way to tell whether they were going to make it or not, but they just there was such a desire to and need to do it that they kept doing it. And it was something about that really attracted me. And so after a year, I kind of just this is just a sliver of what this story actually is. I ended up doing it because I went out with this record store manager that I had a crush on, and I very quickly was told after our great coffee date that she was a lesbian.
Wow. Well, that might have. She was a record store. Would you say a producer?
Manager, record store
manager. So she made that up, is what we're guessing.
No, it was true.
That's strange. Now I'm confused.
No, like we went out. I asked her out to coffee, and she's like, "Great."
You thought it was a date, and she didn't think it was a date.
No, she just thought she was hanging.
Yeah, it happened. Well, that can happen. Confusion.
Yeah, it can happen.
Yeah.
And I was furious, and I wanted to talk about it on stage. And that was my first time. It was.
You're breaking up there for a second. You were saying it was your first time on stage because you were angry.
First time on stage, it was really bad. I got one laugh, and that was a laugh off of like a recognition of a reference. I was like mentioning Phil Collins in the Air Tonight because it's a song about watching someone commit suicide. And there was a 50-year-old dude who was just like, I know what that is. That was the only response I got the whole time. And but I hated that experience less than going to like a film mixer or a networking event and exchanging business cards that ultimately would never lead to anything. Maybe you would exchange an email about getting coffee, and then that didn't happen, and that was just like, this is stupid, and I don't like this, and it seems like a waste of time and energy, and is just depressing. So at least there's like productivity and immediacy in like doing even open mics, even if it goes bad, there's a beauty and freedom in that everyone is bad at the start.
Yeah, it's true.
I love, even if you're naturally funny, it's such an unnatural thing to do that there's things that you have to learn, and then you have to unlearn them, and in finding what you want to do and what your voice is. And so I really appreciated that process.
And did you just basically started diving into doing stand-up from there, and just being invested in that world and spending time with people in that world? Was that kind of where your journey went and started? And that's, I'm guessing, where the site came.
Yeah. So for a year, we tried doing these different open mics that we knew about in Long Beach, because those are the only people we knew. And, there was like one place to get up every night, but we'd have to perform and see the same people. And I, really getting into this, wanted to like go to more places and know more.
Sure.
And as it would happen, there wasn't really a great, reliable central source of information where to find any of this. And I thought it was a shame, because as I would hear about and go to various things that were underground that weren't like at clubs or traditional venues, none of that would be cataloged or advertised anywhere. Really, you would just have to know about it. And so I thought it'd be really great if there was a central source of information. And I just kind of decided in 2010 that I would do it. And I didn't know what that would end up looking like, or what it would be, or, oh my God, how much work it would involve, so much. But yeah, that was when I started diving down the rabbit hole of just being the Comedy Bureau and wanting to make comedy better for performers, for people that are fans, for people that work in the industry, just by having reliable information and curating stuff with so much of the site is about curation.
Yeah, it's a cool site, and it's awesome, and I use it. And how people reacted to the site over the years? Do you get compliments and kind words from people saying, I appreciate this? Do people recognize the work you've put into it, or does everyone just take you for granted at this point?
Well, I mean, it's a bit of both. It has been and still is just me doing it.
Wow.
I've had help in sort of like, redesigning the site.
Sure.
Shout out.
But the management and the day-to-day operations, that's all you?
Just me. That's the sort of the fun inside joke of it for me, is that when I often reach out to people, I make it seem like it's a team, and it's not. It's just me. And so I've been doing it for a long time, and it's been, it's effectively an institution, and people really rely on it. And when we got to see people regularly in person, people would tell me how much it means to them. And, people have told me, like, I went to a showcase that was on your site and somebody dropped out. I ended up going up, and then that's how I got an agent. Or somebody
that's
say,
awesome.
like, I didn't know how to get into comedy, and then somebody told me about the Comedy Bureau, and then I started going to open mics, and I found all these people that I really love, and you've changed my life. And like, so I get to hear that.
That's great. That's awesome.
It makes it like, makes it worth it.
Sure. And what about your comedy journey over those years?
So my comedy journey, it's probably, with everybody that I kind of started with, has gone, probably a lot slower than them, because I've been focused on doing the site, and that's kind of what takes precedent. I like that for me, what I enjoy is being on a lineup of people that I really love, and it's not ridiculous that I'm there. People that have Netflix specials that perform on the road and like do Comedy Central and stuff like that, and or HBO or whatever, Netflix, and I can like hold my own. It's not like, oh, why is it like, after that show, like, oh, that show was pretty good, but I don't know about that one guy. Why was he there? Yeah. And as to whether going forward I want to like record an album or try it for late night or tour, like I don't know about that. I don't know if I want it, like, because I know the amount of work that's involved in actually putting your nose to the grindstone and really doing that. But I enjoy like performing and being an active part of the community on both ends.
That's cool. And what about other like goals, hopes, dreams, aspirations, like filmmaking, creative stuff? I know you're doing some writing as well. Like, what are some of the other things that you've been working on, and where do you see yourself, moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do filmmaking again, although, I don't know how when that'll present itself. I mean, I really love kind of what I do now, but I feel like everything in my leading up to where I am now allows me to do a lot of different things, and I have a large, wide, expansive knowledge base with what I know how to do and what I see and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know like where my reentry point for that specifically would be, or like, I mean, I would love to write on a TV show, but I don't know where my entry point for that would be. But I do know, as far as like where I'm at with what I have created and like maintained and built, like I would love to just have the Comedy Bureau be a bigger, more expansive, more sustainable version of what it is now, so like, and I, kind of am getting to do a little bit of that because of quarantine, and that's sort of switched up things.
Sure.
So I would love there to be a New York branch of the Bureau or a Chicago branch of the Bureau, and just be able to cover comedy nationally or even internationally, and service other places the way that I've gotten to service Los Angeles for so long, because of so much stuff being virtual or even outdoor, doing shows outdoors. I mean, it's so much more limited in volume compared to the before times.
Sure.
I can cover stuff outside of LA. I mean, it was like a manpower and time thing beforehand. But we'll see going forward, but yeah, I mean, I love finding comedy that makes me laugh and surprises me, and then sharing it with people who don't know or very likely wouldn't know any of this. Because so many comedians are terrible about self-promotion and getting the word out on their stuff. And I like just shining a light on like and being able to sort of boost their presence, their profile, throwing their name into the ether of the comedy powers that be.
You're a patron of the arts, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to monetize the site?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. So there's a Patreon that's been around for a few years, and it's giving me a nice little chunk of money, but not enough to live off of. I mean, so the way that the Bureau sort of monetizes itself is sort of indirectly, in that I have gotten to consult at like networks and production companies about comedy. I get to write about comedy at other places like Vulture or LA Weekly or Nerdist.
Provided opportunity, it's open doors for you.
Yeah, and I've gotten to make an album at a comedy record label that has won Grammy, and like none of that would have happened without me doing and continually doing the Comedy Bureau.
Right.
So like that has to be part of my deal.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, it's a cool site, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you sharing your journey with me and
thanks, yeah,
and
absolutely.
whatnot. It's been super fun. What's your favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie?
My favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie, I think, is Frenzy. That's a deep cut, but Alfred, it was one of his later films, and it was done very much as like a big FU to a lot of Hollywood studios. And, part and parcel of that is like he used a bunch of people that weren't known. He used a bunch of people that weren't traditionally attractive. He used a lot of British people, and they got to be British. It wasn't like Brits in America. There was nudity involved. They were showing murder on screen when so much of the murders in his movies were shown off screen. It was a trip, man. It was a trip.
That's cool. Tell me where people can find and follow you and anything else you're working on. And I'll let you have the floor and go on with the rest of your day.
Thanks, man. So the Comedy Bureau is a site, a full-on database and resource for comedy in and around LA. But, now because so much stuff is virtual, around the country and even outside of the US and the UK and Australia. And I'm even covering outdoor shows in New York. So you can find all that information at thecomedybureau.com. You can follow the Comedy Bureau on socials at the Comedy Bureau across platforms. There's a weekly podcast for the Comedy Bureau called the Comedy Bureau Field Report. It comes out every Wednesday. You can follow me personally on Instagram at Not the Supermarket and on Twitter at MFJ Kroeger. As we briefly touched upon, there's a Patreon for the Comedy Bureau. It'd be really great if you supported that. I know there's a lot of very, very important causes that need support right now, but if you have money or generosity after that, it would be much appreciated. There's also a Venmo if you just want to do a one-time thing. And all that is also on the Comedy Bureau. And I would say comedy is not dead and it's not going away. It just has to be different for a while. And
we need it.
Yeah, we need it. And, please support it in any way you can. Because live comedy will be one of the very last things that gets to come back.
It will be one of the last things. Oh, because people have to be super tightly knit for it's the best. It works the best when a lot of people in a small room.
In a small, very dark, packed room.
Yeah.
With terrible ventilation.
Because that's essential too. The terrible ventilation.
Yeah.
That's all. Well, again, I appreciate your time. It's been a lot of fun. I'll let you, go on to greener pastures, not greener pastures, but I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day and evening. And let's talk soon.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Adam.
Oh, you got it. Later.
All right. Later. Bye.
So there you have it. My conversation with Jake Kroeger. That was a lot of fun. And I definitely appreciate his time and all the effort he puts into the Comedy Bureau. I check that site pretty regularly. And I definitely look forward to hopefully seeing Jake perform soon. Anyway, for everything about this show, of course, head to peoplewelovepodcast.com. And I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you very much as always. And let's talk soon. Peace.